أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Amma ba'd, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah for the blessings of this Tuesday that we have the opportunity to gather together and discuss the affairs of the Ahlul Bayt. In our continuing discussion around our 10th Imam, Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we reached the final part of our discussion today where we mentioned the final period of the life of Imam al-Hadi. In the life of Imam al-Hadi, his move to the capital of Samarra took place in approximately 233 under the reign of Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, Mal'un. Mutawakkil was responsible for the persecution of the Imam from that time till approximately 247 after Hijrah. In the year 247 after Hijrah, there's an event that takes place where Mutawakkil is traveling with Imam al-Hadi and a number of people, and Mutawakkil, to disgrace the Imam, takes the mount of the Imam, the horse of the Imam, away, the mule that the Imam was traveling on, away from him, and forces the Imam to walk a long distance in the sun, in abusive condition, in a way of disgracing Imam al-Hadi. While they were walking in this difficult condition, Imam al-Hadi was becoming overcome from the heat of the difficulty that he was going through. One of the Shia approached Imam al-Hadi and said, Yabna Rasulullah, I'm sorry to see you in this condition. I'm sorry to see you in this difficulty. I'm frustrated by this condition. Imam al-Hadi made a statement where he said, I am no less noble in the eyes of Allah than the she-camel of Saleh. And then the Imam did not say more than this. Eventually, Mutawakkil returned the mount and left. When Mutawakkil left, the mounts were returned to Imam al-Hadi and the others, and Imam al-Hadi went back to his house. This individual, when he described to the other Shias of the Ahlul Bayt the persecution that Imam al-Hadi was facing, the Shias asked him, what did Imam al-Hadi do about this? And he replied and he said, I heard Imam al-Hadi say that I am no less noble in the eyes of Allah than the she-camel of Saleh. One of the Shia who was sitting, he exclaimed and he says, are you sure he said this? He says, yes, I'm certain the Imam said this. He says, then the Imam has foretold the death of Mutawakkil in 3 days. I said, how? What do you mean Mutawakkil will die in 3 days? And the Shia explained, he says that remember that when the she-camel of Saleh was killed, after 3 days, Allah sent his azab on the tribe of Thamud. In the same way, Imam al-Hadi saying that I am no less noble in the eyes of Allah than the she-camel of Saleh is that now that the Imam has undergone this abuse, that it will be 3 days and Mutawakkil will be dead. In the year 247 after Hijrah, it's noted to say that Mutawakkil was killed by his son Muntasir. And the death of Mutawakkil is described to say that Mutawakkil and his friends were killed by Muntasir and some of the Turkish slaves and servants of the palace in such a way that they cut them into so many pieces that you couldn't tell whose body was whose anymore. And this was the death of Mutawakkil, the oppressive, the one who abused the Ahlul Bayt. After Mutawakkil, there were 3 khulafa in the life of Imam al-Hadi. Muntasir, the one who killed his father, who lasted for maybe 6 months. Then there was Musta'in, and then there was Mu'taz. The Khilafat of Mu'taz was one that was focused on the persecution of Imam al-Hadi. And there are 2 events that take place during this Khilafat. The first one pertains to the son of Imam al-Hadi. To understand this, Imam al-Hadi had 4 sons. There are some narrations that he had a number of daughters as well too, but many narrators agree that there was at least one daughter, and if I recall correctly, her name was Aliyah, according to some of the narrations that are written, but 4 sons are well known for Imam al-Hadi. Now, just to explain, not knowing the number of daughters, and we've mentioned this before, is not unusual. And the women of the house of Ahlul Bayt were always preserved. And part of their hijab was that people outside of the house were not familiar with them, were not associated with them, and did not know their names and their details and their information, generally speaking. So to not know his daughters is not unusual. The same way, for example, there still remains a debate, in spite of Karbala, how many were the daughters of Imam Hussein? How many were present in Karbala? How many were not? How many were the daughters of Imam Hassan? Even the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen, there is debate. How many were there? Meaning that this was one of the histories of the Ahlul Bayt, that women were preserved and not kept in the social eye, such that their biographies, their details, their ages would be noted and named. Similarly, in the children of Imam al-Hadi, our 10th Imam, are noted 4 sons. The oldest of them was Sayyid Muhammad, then it was Hassan ibn Ali, then Hussein ibn Ali, and then Ja'far ibn Ali. These 4 sons have an interesting biography and have interesting commentary around their biographies. The shortest of these biographies is the biography of Hussein ibn Ali. Hussein ibn Ali, the brother of Imam Hassan al-Askari, the son of Imam al-Hadi, was a very pious man, but there is not much known about him because of the extremity of the persecution that took place over the life of Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Askari. And there's not many narrations from him and not much known from him, except that he is a source of genealogy that returns back to Imam al-Hadi and from Imam al-Hadi to his forefathers. But he was a pious man, and there's not much discussion about him. Ja'far, the son of Imam al-Hadi, is sometimes known as Ja'far al-Kadhab and other times known as Ja'far al-Tawwab. Ja'far was the son of Imam al-Hadi, who after the shahadat of his brother, Imam Hassan al-Askari, tried to claim the imamate and tried to claim that he was the imam of the time. And eventually, he became known as Ja'far al-Kadhab for this claim that he said, I am the imam after my brother. And all of the mu'mineen knew that there are no 2 brothers who will be the imams after Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. And that he did not possess the signs and the attributes of imamate. So he became known as Ja'far al-Kadhab to identify him. And Kadhab means liar, Ja'far the liar, after the death of Imam Hassan al-Askari, his brother. Eventually, there's a letter from Imam Zaman that's written and noted in books that says that call my uncle Ja'far al-Tawwab, the one who repented, because after he claimed the imamate, he repented and sought Allah's forgiveness. Do not call him Ja'far al-Kadhab, call him Ja'far al-Tawwab. The authenticity of this letter sometimes is debated, but to have husn al-dhan about a mu'min is not a bad thing. And inshallah, we pray that he is someone who sought forgiveness and he is amongst the pious people. The 2 brothers that remain are Sayyid Muhammad and Imam Hassan. These 2 had a very close relationship from the sons of Imam al-Hadi. The oldest of the sons of Imam al-Hadi was the Sayyid Muhammad, and the second eldest was Imam Hassan al-Askari. Sayyid Muhammad was born in the city of Medina in the year of 228 before Imam al-Hadi was moved to Samarra, and he was a very pious man, and he had excellent character. He was known for his ibadah. He was known for his handsomeness. He was known for his good character, nature, and knowledge of Islam. So much so that many people who would look at Imam al-Hadi and look at his sons would say that Sayyid Muhammad is going to be the next Imam. But Sayyid Muhammad always had a young man with him, his younger brother, Imam Hassan, or Sayyid Hassan ibn Ali. It was noted to say that these 2 brothers would be seen in such a way that Sayyid Muhammad looked like he was the teacher, and that Hassan was the one benefiting from him and always sitting behind him and listening to him. And the belief was that this was the most pious, and he was teaching the younger brother piety and good character. During the time of Mu'taz, the goal was to somehow end the lineage of the children of Bibi Fatima and end the silsila of imamat. So in the year 252, Sayyid Muhammad takes his father's permission and takes permission to leave the city of Samarra and go to Hajj. And when he leaves his father's side, the Khalifa of the time makes the decision that I will end the lineage of Imams and I will assassinate this Imam. So shortly after Sayyid Muhammad leaves his father's side, and he's now started the process of proceeding very close to his father's homeland. Suddenly he falls very suddenly, very sick, and he dies in Balad, very close to Samarra. Today, the distance between Balad and Samarra is not more than 2 hours, even with all the checkpoints. This death of Sayyid Muhammad in Balad was at the age of 24. So meaning that this son, who was a young man, who just stepped out of his house to go to Mecca for Hajj, away from his father's protection, away from the site of the city of Samarra, suddenly, immediately upon leaving the city where he was perfectly healthy enough to go to Hajj, suddenly within a very, very short distance falls ill and dies. And that's why the belief is that Sayyid Muhammad was assassinated at the age of 24. When his father, Imam al-Hadi, receives the news, and this is one of the masaib of Imam al-Hadi, to lose a grown son like this, to lose a grown son who was a pious and good man of noble character, is a great loss. It's a difficult loss. It's a loss by which the Ahl al-Bayt are tried, that pious people are tried. Imam al-Hadi proceeds to the grave of his son, or to the body of his son, to bury his son, Sayyid Muhammad, and it's narrated to say that 150 of the Banu Hashim and the Talibin, the children of Abu Talib, the children of Sayyidah Fatima, Jafarin, all come to attend this janazah, and they sit in a room. And they sit by the janazah of Sayyid Muhammad. Imam al-Hadi comes and sits by the janazah. And there was a constant murmur going on in this room. And amongst the conversations was, now what? They killed the next Imam, now what? Or they killed the son, who will be the successor now? Where will Imamate go after Imam al-Hadi? Now, Imam al-Hadi at this time was only 40 years of age, so he was not very old. But to lose your son at this age is a very painful thing. And they said, as we sat there and we murmured and whispered amongst ourselves, we saw a young man of handsome beauty walk into the room, and it stopped every noise inside of the room. We saw this young man go and throw himself on the body of Sayyid Muhammad and begin to cry and tear the collar of his shirt, weeping over his brother. Some called out and said, this is the younger brother of Sayyid Muhammad. And when they saw him tear his collar at the death of his brother, some people called out and say, it is inappropriate, it is not halal for a brother to weep over his brother like this. To which Imam Hassan replied in his youth, though he was young, he replied and he says, be silent, what do you know? Do you not know that Musa tore his collar when Harun was killed? Musa wept over Harun the way I weep over my brother. And people became silent and astounded. The narrators write and say that the muhaddithin of that time said, we did not know this young man existed until the death of his brother. It's said that Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi, Imam al-Hadi, consoled his son Hassan at the death of his older brother. And he said to him, O my son, be patient, that in this trial and difficulty, Allah has made many things easy for you. I'm paraphrasing the actual hadith. But the significance was Imam al-Hadi is consoling Imam Hassan al-Askari that it's true that this is a great loss and this is a trial. But through this trial, Allah has alleviated many difficulties for you. Today, we interpret this statement and this consolation of Imam al-Hadi to his son Hassan as being an explanation that, oh, my son Hassan, if your brother had remained alive, people would have split again in the religion of Islam. Some would have accepted your imamate, and others would have raised him to the status of imam. And that by his shahadat in my life, oh Hassan, your seat has been secured, that people will not doubt your imamate, and there will be not a split in the time of your imamate. But this exposure to who was the next imam happened when Imam Hassan al-Askari was at the age of 20. prior to the age of 20, no one realized, and this was going to be the next Imam. When historians write about this, and they write and they say that when we saw Hassan with Muhammad, when we saw these two brothers together, we had imagined that it was the older one teaching the younger one. Now realizing what we were watching was that the older one was the shield of the younger one, protecting him from the public sight, and it was the younger one guiding the older one with wisdom, with hikmah and support. Allah created a system amongst the sons of Imam al-Hadi to protect the next Imam from the visibility of the khulafa and the oppressors of the time. And which is why for 20 years, a shield was placed in front of Imam al-Hassan as the older brother, Sayyid Muhammad. Sayyid Muhammad, in terms of his piety and character, is still a great wasila for us today. And many of us who go to ziyarat in Iraq make a stop in the city of Balad and visit the grave of Sayyid Muhammad. Sayyid Muhammad, the son of Imam al-Hadi, his piety, his nobility, his purity is something that is acknowledged by Sunni and Shia Muslims alike. It is one of the most fascinating things that till today, when you go to Balad, you will see people who don't believe in the imamat of Imam al-Hadi come to his son's grave to seek shifa and wasila of Sayyid Muhammad. And it was one of the notable characteristics of his piety and of the miracles experienced by his grave that people, when they prayed to Allah by the grave of Sayyid Muhammad, their hajat would be fulfilled. So they honored and protected the grave of the son of Imam al-Hadi. And the frustrating and unfortunate quality is that when the graves of Imam al-Hadi and Imam Hassan al-Askari were attacked in Samarra, and the people of Samarra did not stand by and support and protect the graves of the two Imams, those in Balad had the fortune to be the ones that protected the grave of the son of Imam al-Hadi, and they protected him from the attacks of the enemies of Islam. Such was his piety and his unity that was brought forth through him. His Shahadat takes place in the year 252 after Hijrah. This is 2 years before the Shahadat of Imam al-Hadi, in the Dawr of Mu'taz Mal'un, who eventually, after killing Sayyid Muhammad, turned his attention to return the persecution to Imam al-Hadi and prepared for the assassination of Imam al-Hadi. The difficulties of the life of Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Hadi's role as being the Imam of the time for a period of 34 years was protecting the religion of Islam, protecting the message of Islam and the message of Ahlul Bayt in one of the most difficult periods of history. The Dawr of Imam al-Hadi is where the most severe attempts of wiping out the Shia took place. Whether it was through the governors of Medina and Mecca who abused the children of Banu Hashim, refused them wealth, refused them any status, refused them work, such that they lived in poverty and penury to the extent where they did not have clothes in their houses. Or it was, for example, the attempt that Mutawakkil made to wipe out the grave of Imam Hussein and prevent the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. Whether it was the active persecution against the Imams and their children, where even the son of Imam al-Hadi is killed at the age of 24 because of the fear that Imamat would continue through him. Yet our Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi persevered through all of this and preserved the religion of Islam and made sure that the message remained. Which is why, even through the persecutions of where his house would be searched in the middle of the night, where they would accuse the Imam of trying to steal authority, the Imam traveled such a straight and thin and narrow path to make sure that he remained to preserve Islam, was eventually cut short by Mu'taz. Through all these khulafa, whenever one of them would become Khalifa, the advisors, those seeking favor with the Khalifa, would always turn them against the son of Zahra and would say that this is the greatest threat to your khilafat, this is the greatest threat to your authority. And they would use different means. Sometimes they would describe and say that, oh, for example, as they did with Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, that he is collecting wealth to raise an army against you. And they made this accusation against Imam al-Hadi many times, where they would describe and say in the middle of the nights, people wouldn't even come through the front door. They would climb over the walls into the house of Imam al-Hadi on the command of the Khalifa, and they would search the entirety of the house. And they would never find anything in the house that would be something that would be a claim against Imam al-Hadi that he was trying to usurp the authority of the Khalifa. Until Mu'taz, who, though there was no proof, he didn't want proof anymore. It's believed to say that Mu'taz, just under the fear of the popularity and the fame and the notoriety of Imam al-Hadi, felt threatened so much that he felt it necessary to poison and kill the Imam. It's noted to say that the poisoning of Imam al-Hadi takes place in the year 254 after Hijrah, and it is a severe poison that brings the Imam to a great state of sickness. And in his state of sickness, it is the companions and those who were loyal to the Imam who came to visit him. These visits, in some situations, in some narrations, are noted as being allowed by the Khalifa to say that, look, he died of natural causes. Even his friends saw him die of natural causes. But that they came and they asked Imam al-Hadi to anoint and to appoint who would be the next Imam, to disclose to the people who the next Imam would be. And it was disclosed that his son Hassan ibn Ali would be the next Imam. It's described to say in these difficulties that when the Imam dies and becomes martyred by the poison that's administered to him through Mu'taz, that the death of the Imam is something that once it takes place, Imam Hassan al-Askari immediately begins the process of shrouding and doing the ghusl and praying over Imam al-Hadi in private. And then as soon as this is done and his body is brought out of the house, the entirety of Samarra, the judges and the jurists, the soldiers, the common people, the poor people, all flooded the streets of Samarra. There's a couple of different narrations about this event, but it's said that in this moment the Khalifa himself came, Mu'taz, and wanted to pray over Imam al-Hadi, though Imam al-Askari had already prayed over him, but publicly Mu'taz, to show that he was aggrieved by this loss and not the cause of this loss, he too attempted to pray over Imam al-Hadi. And after that, the body of Imam al-Hadi was returned to his house, and Imam al-Hadi was buried inside of his own house. What's interesting about this today is that for us, it is one of the greatest honors to go and visit the graves of Ahlul Bayt. And we go to Medina and we visit Jannatul Baqi and see the four Imams who are buried there. We go to Najaf, we see Amir al-Mu'mineen. We go to Karbala to see Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We go to Kadhmain to visit Imam Musa ibn Ja'far and Imam al-Jawad. And we go to Mashhad to visit Imam Rada. But after Rasulullah, the only one who is buried in his house is the 10th Imam and the 11th Imam. Today, when you go to Samarra and you go to visit the graves of Ahlul Bayt there, you are in their house. The Imam invites you into his house, his actual house, where he was buried. And you go to see him there. It's painful to describe that the desecration of the grave of Imam al-Hadi, the desecration of the grave of Imam al-Askari that took place in our lifetime was not just a desecration of their grave, but it was a desecration of the house in which they lived. That those who hold animosity against the Ahlul Bayt went to the house of the Imam and destroyed it. May Allah give us tawfiq to love the Ahlul Bayt, to stand for justice for the Ahlul Bayt, to stand in their support, and to be amongst those who the Imam invites to his house. We finish the session with dua. ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم, calling out 10 times, Ya Allah, 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 Ya Mahmud بحق محمد, Ya A'la بحق علي, Ya فاطر السماوات بحق فاطمة, يا محسن بحق الحسن, يا قديم الأحسان بحق الحسين. Oh Allah, accept a small ibadah from us. Ya Allah, give the thawab of this mention of Ahlul Bayt, this recitation of dua to our marhumeen, uh, and all those who have no one to recite dua for them. Ya Allah, we have gathered here with hajat. By the wasila of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, fulfill our hajat. Ya Allah, those amongst our family and our community who are suffering through sickness and disease, give shafa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Oh Allah, those who are suffering through strife and insecurity, bring aman and peace to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us and our families from the upright supporters of the Imam of our time. Entitle us to ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt in this world and shafa of Ahlul Bayt in the hereafter. Remembering all of our marhumeen and sharing the thawab of this mention of Ahlul Bayt with all those who have passed before us. 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, with salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.